The Bouncer is an interesting, somewhat hybrid class that shines in close to medium range combat. They don't have access to as many weapon skills as other classes, though they make up for this by being able to use techniques. The weapons you'll have access to on Bouncer are the Soaring Blades and the Jet Boots. Let's first go over the Soaring Blades, formerly known as Dual Blades. When at max focus, your weapon skills and normal attacks are boosted by 20% damage. Any attack you land will contribute to focus accumulation. Some weapon skills can accumulate this much faster due to hitting multiple times, such as Heavenly Kite. By then using the weapon action, you will then throw out Photon Blades at the cost of 1 bar of focus each. These projectiles can do a lot of damage and regen a bit of PP when they land, so they will quickly become a staple of your rotation. And you can also move in a direction while using the weapon action to deal decent damage to the first thing you come in contact with during the movement. A good combo to learn, to tie all of this together, will be to max out your focus, then engage with Distraction Wing, then either back out or circle around the enemy with the weapon action. This will keep you close to the enemy, but also give you plenty of room to disengage when necessary, all while tossing out Photon Blades and making use of the collision damage you cause when bumping into something with the weapon action. There's then a skill on Bouncer's tree called Photon Blades Fever. This is actually an active buff that doubles how many Photon Blades tossed out per weapon action and buffs their damage by 30%. The last thing I'd like to mention now is the skill Crystal Rampage, in that we will eventually be able to craft it, and when we do, it will then consume all of your current accumulated focus, and will then scale its damage, range, size, and animation speed depending on how much focus was used. This will be a really nice skill to use when Photon Blade Fever is on cooldown. Moving on to the Jet Boots, these guys are quite different than the Blades, and they focus on much quicker, harder hitting attacks. And speaking of hard hitting, their normal attacks sometimes hit almost as hard as their PAs. By default, Jet Boots PAs deal melee damage but scale off tech power. You do however have a skill called Switch Strike, which will then change these to scale off of melee power instead. You would want to do this if you wanted to focus on both weapons with a melee build, since you'd be slotting melee in your gear. And this is also very helpful if you use a melee mag too. Their focus is built up by landing attacks and depletes over time or when using Jet Sweep Kick. At max focus, you will gain 15% damage to PAs and normal attacks. Also, as long as you have focus, you can infinitely jump with Jet Boots after an attack with the skill Encore Jump in your skill tree. Next, there's a few cool things about the Jet Boots that separate them from other weapons. The first would be that one can swap their element by simply charging a tech of the corresponding element. And this not only helps line you up to be able to hit elemental weaknesses on enemies, but it also helps tie into your elemental stance, which we'll be going over in just a minute. You will need the Jet Boots focus for one point in your skill tree for this to work though. The next interesting thing about Jet Boots is that they only have a few weapon skills, but when using the weapon action at any given time during the skills, you will transition them into another action depending on what PA was used. Using it with Strike Gust will instantly bring you to the ground and auto-cast Shifta. With Grand Wave, it'll start flipping you backwards out of harm's way with some iframes while also casting D-Band. Grand Wave in general is a very nice gap closer, and the weapon action is a very great disengage follow-up if need be. With Surging Gale, you will start to spin around, pull enemies inward, and then also cast Xanverse. This can also be jump cancelled too. With Jet Sweep Kick, if you wait until the end of the charge up, then use the weapon action, you'll perform a very strong kick instead of an AoE blast around yourself, and this is actually your strongest ability. Just like with Crystal Rampage, on the Soaring Blades, Jet Sweep Kick consumes all accumulated focus and its damage scales accordingly. So your rotation will then involve building up focus very fast and then spending it on the skill and then repeating. You can also use the weapon action by itself though, and this gives some mobility, some short iframes, and some damage you can use right in the middle of combat. And this won't consume any focus either. Just like the Soaring Blades, Jet Boots also have an active buff, and this is called Rapid Boost. Under its effects, your PAs and techs will have a shorter charge time and also gain a 15% damage to perfect attacks. You can get a similar effect from a certain skill ring, which I'll be going over near the end when we go over the suggested skill rings. Like many classes in this game, Bouncer also has two stances. Luckily, you don't have to choose which one you want, as you'll have enough points to get them both and just toggle between them as you see fit. Elemental Stance and its modifiers grant 30% more damage to enemies when they are attacked with a tech or weapon of the same element they are weak to, and only 15% damage when using a different element. This is why I mentioned that Jet Boots are perfect for this stance, since you can change their element on the fly. The other stance, Break Stance, is also very simple. as you gain 45% more damage to any breakable part of an enemy. There is, however, no benefit at all when attacking non-breakable parts. But with the skill Break Stance D bonus, the Soaring Blades can do about 30% damage to non-breakable parts in Break Stance. And because of this, Break Stance becomes Soaring Blades' main stance. And since hitting a breakable part on Break Stance still offers higher damage than what Elemental Stance can usually offer, Break Stance is still desired on Jet Boots to swap to here and there. On Bouncer, you will also have access to 2 of what are known as field buffs. These toss down an AoE buff around yourself which affects allies too. One gives back additional PP per hit when hitting elemental weaknesses, and the other boosts crit rate, and these are very helpful for parties and yourself. Now for mags. Bouncer is one of the 3 classes that actually benefits from having a dex mag so long as you take the Bouncer mag skill in its skill tree. To put it simply, for every 1 point of dex in your mag, you will gain 1 melee and 1 tech power. Because of this, there's absolutely no downsides to using a dex mag, at least for this class. There are a few reasons why some people would not want to use a dex mag though, and the first would be if you already have a melee mag, or plan to play other classes in the future that use one, and aren't too focused on tech casting, you could then use a melee mag, and it would work great with both weapons. You would just need to take the Switch Strike skill on the boots. The other reasons would be if you don't expect to play Braver or Phantom down the road, as they are the only 2 other classes that would make use of a dex mag. Lastly, you could opt to use a tech power mag if you wanted to focus on casting, but that's not really much of a thing anymore. I'd like to now mention some skill rings you should look into getting. For the left rings, Photon Blades homing, make it so your Photon Blades track your target better, and also change direction much faster. It also increases their damage by a little bit too. This ring comes highly recommended for Soaring Blades. The next would be Soaring Blade Tackle, and this increases damage dealt when bumping into enemies with the Soaring Blades weapon action. This can actually end up doing a ton of damage and doesn't require anything else to activate it. You just need a weapon action into an enemy, and it does damage. And this is also highly recommended too. Jet Boots Combo Variant SC is the one I alluded to earlier when talking about Jet Boots. And this one reduces your PA charge time by up to 50% when using Jet Boots. This is great for building up focus very fast and should absolutely be used if you're using Jet Boots a lot too. Eventually, there will be a combined left ring that we don't have yet in the NA version. Therefore, we don't know what its name will be, but it combines the effects of the last 2 rings mentioned into one. So keep a lookout for this in the future. Now, for right rings, I usually like to leave this up to personal preference, as there are so many to choose from that can benefit you a lot in different ways. But one that stands out that some bouncers I know use is Combo Variant P-Attack PP Save. And this one will reduce the PP cost of skills by up to 15% when using different PAs in succession. And this is basically a discount version of one of the fighter skills. Lastly, let's go over some effective subclasses for Bouncer. As usual, Hunter is always an amazing sub, as it offers lots of offensive and defensive capabilities with little to no conditions to meet at all. You won't have to do any additional thinking with this combo. However, you generally would not be using many techs outside of those just to use to charge for elements, or to heal or for mobility. Next, Summoner is nice as it offers lots of stat ups, passive damage increases almost on par with some classes' stances, passive healing, and an active debuff you can place on an enemy to deal additional damage. This, however, requires a lot more attention and micromanaging and is not meant for beginners. This will become much more useful in the future updates as enemies start to become much stronger and have much greater health pools. Phantom, once released, will also be an amazing sub to Bouncer as it grants lots of crit, extremely fast tech charge time, fast focus accumulation, and more. You can also stack both Bouncer and Phantom's Dex Mag skills on top of one another to get a whole 400 melee and tech power for a maxed out straight Dex Mag. The only downside to Phantom sub would be that you don't have as much survivability as you would say with Hunter. And that's just about it for Bouncer. If you would like to see how to build Bouncer's skill tree, or just want to understand it better, check out the skill tree video I made to go along with this one. And with that, take care.